Once you have completed an intake for your client, you can start to record information about the assistance the client is receiving. In H2H, these are called services. A service is a way of recording the assistance your agency provided to the client, any assistance provided by another SHS or mainstream provider, and any assistance that the client needs that cannot be provided or referred. It is important to remember that services are not intended to capture your effort as a worker, but instead to reflect the supports that your client is receiving from you and others. Services should be recorded with a client focus rather than a worker activity focus. Within H2H, there are two places where you can record services, within the intake menu or within the case plan. All assistance provided to a client prior to a case plan is entered from the services screen, and all assistance provided to a client once a case plan starts is entered in the relevant issue in the case plan. Services data is included in both the state and federal reporting requirements and is an important part of reflecting your case management activity throughout the client's support period. Through looking at the different types and quantity of services being provided to clients, we can draw valuable information about how the specialist homelessness sector can achieve the best possible outcomes for clients at the end of support. Provided services capture assistance provided to the client directly by your agency. From the services screen in the intake menu, select the Add Service button, then the Provide Service delivery type. Then select the Look Up Service button. The first menu lists all the different types of services that might be provided by your agency. Look through the list to find the service that is the closest match to the assistance provided to your client. Remember to be as specific as you can to provide the most accurate reflection of the support the client received as possible. A definition for each of these services can be found in the SHS collection menu. Make sure you take some time to review the definitions so you can feel confident that you are recording accurately. Once you have selected a service, you will need to select a service element. Service elements come from your agency's service agreement and are used to measure assistance to clients who are being supported as part of specialised programs within your wider agency funding agreement. If your client is part of a specific program, for example, the Supportive Housing Packages program, you will need to select that element each time you enter a service for that client. You can find definitions for most service elements in the H2H user guide. It is important that you speak with your colleagues and manager to ensure that you are selecting the correct service element for each client. For the purposes of this video, we'll be using the In-Center Support service element. Once you have selected a service and service element, complete the remaining mandatory fields. The date requested will default to today's date but can be backdated if needed. The response type and responsibility fields are not used for reporting purposes, so you can select whatever you feel is the most accurate for the service you are entering. Next is your service description. This free text field is also not used for reporting purposes. Here you can write a short description about the service you have provided so that when you look through your services list in future, you will know what support this service was recording. Next, you can complete your dates. The start date will default to today's date, but you can backdate this to the beginning of the current calendar month. You will not be able to backdate a service to earlier than the intake was added. Most services will be recorded as a once-off, so the start and end dates will be the same day. The exception to this is accommodation services. For accommodation of any kind, the dates should reflect the duration of the client's stay, entering the dates that they moved into and will move out of the accommodation. For clients engaged in a program or course that runs for a set period of time, you can use the start and end dates to reflect the duration. For example, if your client enrolled in a 2-week training course, you could record the start date of today and the end date in 2 weeks' time. Once all the mandatory fields have been completed, you can save your service and you will be returned to the services screen. If your end date is today or a date in the future, the service will be shown as in progress with an open green donut icon, and will have the ability to edit the dates or delete the service if no longer required. Once the service passes its end date, it can no longer be edited or deleted and is now closed. Closed services can be repeated. This will pre-fill the service and service element and is useful when entering service types that are provided frequently. There are two kinds of referrals in H2H. Client referrals, where the whole client is moved from one agency to another, and service referrals. Internal service referrals are used to record co-case management, where a client is being supported by more than one SHS agency. The lead agency keeps control of the record, but can send referrals to other agencies who might be providing some assistance to the client. These agencies are referred to as consented agencies. The AIHW defines a referred service as when you refer a client to another service provider and that service provider accepts the client for an appointment or interview. When you refer a service in H2H, what you are reporting in the data is that your client is getting this assistance from the consented agency. First, determine if the service being provided by another agency is in your region. If not, you'll need to select All in the top drop-down menu. Next, select the appropriate prefix and service. The prefix will be the type of agency you are referring to. For example, a domestic violence, youth, generic or Aboriginal and/or Torres Strait Islander agency. Once you've chosen your prefix and service, a list of agencies will appear. Locate the agency that is assisting your client from the alphabetical list. Some information about the agency you are referring to will pre-populate, and you will then need to complete the remaining mandatory fields. Before you can send your referral, first you will need to record the client's consent. Select the Add Consent button to record whether the consent was written or verbal, whether the client has agreed, and check the expiry date. The consent expiry will default to 6 months from today's date, but you can make this shorter or longer if needed. Setting a consent will make more of the client record visible to the consented agency and also allow them to add their own services to the record, for as long as the consent remains current. Circumstances where you might set a consent without the client's agreement would be where you are sharing information with another provider under the information sharing guidelines. If you are recording a referral for a child, the consent screen will appear slightly different, as you will need to record the consent of the parent or guardian. Now that consent has been added, you can send the referral. Once sent, the system will generate an email confirmation to the consented agency to let them know a referral has been received, and a user with agency manager level access can go to the referrals menu to accept it. Similar to provided services, referrals within H2H will automatically close once they have reached their end date. On saving, you'll see a pop-up to check that you have spoken to the consented agency before sending. This is a reminder of the warm referral concept behind H2H. The expectation is that before you send the referred service, you will have already spoken with the consented agency to arrange the provision of assistance to your client. Entering the service referral in H2H is capturing this data. Once the referred service has been saved, it will appear in your services list. Until it has been accepted, you will see a blue withdraw icon in the action column and a grey open donut icon in the status column, indicating that the referral is still pending. Once accepted, the icons will change to match those of provided services. Not all supports to clients are provided by the homelessness and domestic violence sector, so H2H has an external service referral function. This function allows you to capture where clients are receiving assistance from mainstream providers. For example, disability services, GPs, financial counsellors, accommodation providers, and more. External referrals are a critical part of recording the other supports that you are engaging your client with, in addition to the supports your own agency is providing. Select Add Service and choose Referral External to H2H from the delivery type list. You will notice that there is no Lookup Service button, as there is with other service types. In its place is a link to the SA community website where you can search for information if you need it. For external referrals, select your service from the first drop-down menu. You will notice that some of the services in this list are different, as they are supports that are not provided by the SHS sector and cannot be entered as a provided service, only as an external referral. Complete the reason for referral and contact details for the external service provider. The email address entered here will receive an automated email and PDF copy of the referral details. The email address entered here will receive an automated email and PDF copy of the referral details. This can sometimes cause confusion for external service providers. If you do not wish to send the email to the external provider, you can direct the email to yourself by entering your own email address. Complete the remainder of your mandatory fields, including a service description and dates. Remember that you should do a start and end date of the same day for one-off services and an extended date range for accommodation or for programs with a set duration. Next, you will need to add a consent, as once again, you are sharing information with another service provider. In the consented agency text box, type the name of the service provider that you are referring to. Remember to be specific here, as the details will be recorded in the consent screen for future agencies and workers to view. Make sure your consent is specific. For example, writing SA Housing Authority would indicate your client has consented for you to share information with any SA Housing Authority staff member. Instead, you might write SA Housing Authority, Adelaide Regional Office. Once consent has been added, the consented agency is now listed in the provider dropdown and can be selected for future external referrals. Once all of your mandatory fields are complete, the referred service is ready to send. Select the Send and Accept button to send. Similar to internal referrals, you will see a pop-up screen checking that you have followed the warm referral process. If your end date is today or a date in the future, the service will be shown as in progress with an open green donut icon and the ability to edit the dates or delete the services if entered in error. Once the service passes its end date, it can no longer be edited or deleted and is now closed. As with other service types, closed external referrals can be repeated using the repeat service icon. Unmet needs are slightly different to the other types of services. Where provided and referred services record assistance that has been provided to the client, unmet needs are about recording gaps in service provision. The AIHW defines an unmet need as any assistance that an agency worker assesses the client as needing, whether or not the client accepts or agrees to participate in the support service. By recording an unmet need, you provide valuable information on the things that your client needs to reach a successful outcome, but you cannot access for them, either because it is not available or the client refuses the support. Recording unmet needs is a way for workers to advocate to funding bodies about supports that there are not enough of. For example, long-term housing, mental health assistance, financial counsellors, and more. Capturing the lack of availability of these services provides the evidence needed to advocate for increasing access to supports where they are in short supply. Unmet needs are added in the same way as services via the Add Service button. The service requested list contains all types of assistance, including both general services found in the provided service list, as well as the more specialised assistance types found in the external referral list. Once you've selected the unmet need from the service list, you will need to choose a prefix. When choosing a prefix, ask yourself the question, if I could access this assistance for my client right now, who would it be coming from? My own agency, another homelessness or domestic violence agency, or an external provider? You should choose the prefix to match who the provider would be if you could immediately provide or refer for this assistance. The prefix that you choose will determine whether you can convert the unmet need to a provided or referred service, if in the future you are able to meet the need for that client. Once you have completed the remaining fields, you can save the unmet need. Unmet needs do not have an end date and will remain on your client record until you are able to meet the need and convert it to provided or referred, or close it off if the client no longer requires the assistance in the future. If your client proceeds to a case plan further along their support pathway, you will be able to transfer the unmet needs identified here into the case plan when you open it. Non-lead agencies, also known as consented agencies, can enter services that they have provided to other agencies' clients as long as a current consent exists. To do this, the lead agency should go to the consent screen in the client menu and add a consent to the agency who will be providing the assistance to the client. Once the consent has been set, the consented agency will see the Add Service button become available on the services screen. Each provided service added by the consented agency will generate a notification through the referrals menu on the home screen. This notification must be accepted by the lead agency to complete the service. This ensures that the lead agency is always aware of the support being provided by other agencies and workers. In summary, services record critical information about the holistic supports that clients are receiving from the sector, being connected to via mainstream providers, and identifying unmet support needs. Ensuring that you are accurately reflecting all of the different types of assistance your client receives is critical to understanding client outcomes at the end of support. And don't forget that definitions for all service types can be found in the AIHW SHS Collection Manual. For information on how services work in the case plan, keep watching as we will revisit the topic of services in the case plan video.